Hello everyone, I hope you're all having a great day today, and in this video we're going to be doing a review for X-Men The Last Stand, which came out in 2006. This was the third installment to the Fox X-Men film series. Now, when it comes to this movie, there's an interesting setup that kind of builds upon the previous two films, with the government and mutants still kind of being at odds, as everyone's trying to figure out what to kind of do with the whole mutant situation. And there's definitely a lot of talent on display here. The performances are all very good. There's also some pretty solid action throughout the film. And I would say overall the final battle is pretty good on an action level. Now, as for the VFX, it's okay for 2006. It's a little inconsistent, similar to the rest of the X-Men movies from the 2000s. I will say I do appreciate how they avoided using motion capture for the character of Beast. And overall, when it comes to all these different characters in this movie, most of them have a pretty good dynamic with each other as all these X-Men are working together and continuing to grow. But there are some characters like the Angel and that one kid named Jimmy who just feel very squeezed into the story. And overall, this film just really didn't make me feel any emotion when there's a lot of stuff in it that should. And I think it just comes down to the story being a little bit too fast-paced. So Jean Grey comes back in this movie after her sacrifice in X2. She apparently didn't die, but they start to do this adaptation of the Dark Phoenix story. Cyclops also dies pretty early on, and the characters really don't give much time to grieve his death. Professor X is also killed in this movie, and there's a little bit more time of grief, but still not enough because the story just moves a little bit too fast. And I appreciate superhero movies that don't feel like they need to be 2 hours long, but there's just too much stuff going on in this movie. Everything feels underdeveloped. Of course, there's this whole storyline with the government releasing this serum that cures mutants of their mutations, and I think it's the dumbest thing ever, because all these mutations are so different from one another. The fact that one serum would work the same for all these different mutants doesn't make much sense to me. I mean, I do know that it's all from like the same X gene or whatever, but it still just feels kind of lazy. And everyone in this movie either believes that all the mutants need to have the serum right now, or the serum is completely bad and no one can use it. And the thing is, all these mutations are very different from one another. Like, for example, if I had Wolverine's mutation, I would not want to get the serum because I would have some awesome superpowers. But there are other mutations that are really more kind of inconvenient, so it would make sense that someone would want to get rid of them. But just overall, when it comes to this movie, it feels like the execution was just really awkward. Part of that was because the director of the previous two movies did not return. But just overall, on a story level, they made a bunch of dumb decisions with these characters. Mystique loses her powers pretty early on, so she's really only seen at the beginning being locked up. And Magneto gets some new sidekicks, which are just not really that great, especially Juggernaut. Rogue also willingly takes the serum and loses her powers, which for her, I think it would have been better if they could have made it to where she actually got used to her powers and found a way to use them for the greater good, but that's just not what they decided to do with her. Of course, you have the characters dying that I mentioned, and Magneto loses his powers at the end of the film and starts to get them back at the very end of the film, and a lot of this dumb stuff that goes on was undone in later X-Men films anyways. But just overall, when it comes to this movie, while I do think there are good elements, it just kind of falls flat as a whole. So overall, on the quality scale of 0 to 100, we'll give it a 56%. And if you're a fan of X-Men and are trying to watch all the movies in the series, you might as well check this out. But otherwise, it's not really anything too significant. But if you've already seen it, let me know what you think about it in the comment section down below. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.